Chapter 41. Waving. I left Reg standing in the middle of his lounge, staring at the portrait. I ran down his path and turned right, past Mrs. Banks's front garden. Mrs. Banks was on her bright green lawn, trying to reattach the flamingo's head back onto its body using parcel tape. I stared as I gripped hold of her fence. "It's the headless flamingo!" I shouted. "Yes!" I did a little air punch as Mrs. Banks glared at me. I waved at her. "Hello, Mrs. Banks. It's me, Maxwell." Her jaw hung open. "I'm going to mend your flamingo, Mrs. Banks," I shouted, "and if I can't mend it, I'm going to buy you another one with my pocket money. I'll buy you the best flamingo you've ever seen. How about that?" Mrs. Banks appeared to be frozen to the spot as I gave her another big grin before I ran on. There was someone I needed to see first before I went home. Charlie. If it hadn't been for him, I'd have never got back. I sprinted to his house, and by the time I got to the front step, I was out of breath. As I pressed the doorbell, I looked into the corner of the garden. Dirt Track Mountain was back. I smiled to myself, but Charlie's mum certainly wasn't smiling when she opened the door and saw me. She immediately went to shut it again, but I put my hand out to stop her. "I'm sorry I hurt Charlie's nose, Mrs. Kapoor. It really was an accident, but I don't blame you for not believing me. I haven't been the best friend to Charlie, have I?" Mrs. Kapoor was about to say something when Charlie appeared behind her, wearing a navy suit with a huge plaster across his nose. Of course, the school centenary ball. Days had passed for me in the other world, but somehow I must have come back to exactly the same point I left. His hair was its usual wild state, and it looked brilliant. "Charlie, you're back! Hang on, what am I saying? I'm back," I said, laughing. Charlie and his mum just stared at me. "And your nose, you've got the bandage on. Isn't that brilliant?" I laughed again, but stopped when nobody joined in. Mrs. Kapoor put her arm round Charlie's shoulder. "Charlie isn't going to be hanging around with you, Maxwell. You're a bad influence and not a true friend. Isn't that right, Charlie?" she said. I looked at Charlie, who dropped his eyes and nodded. "Okay, Mrs. Kapoor, I understand. But can I just talk to him on my own? Just for a minute?" She scowled at me. "1 minute," she said sternly, and she went inside. As soon as she'd gone, Charlie started talking. "You're in big trouble, Maxwell," he said. "I wouldn't be surprised if they expel you for what you did at the ball." "Expel me?" I said. "Oh, of course. I turned the electricity off and ruined it for everyone." "I hadn't even thought about the consequences of that," Charlie carried on. "And Mum was right. I don't want to hang around with you anymore. You've done nothing but make me feel bad about myself. Do you realise that?" "No, of course you don't. You only ever think about yourself, Maxwell Beckett, don't you?" I went to disagree, but he hadn't finished. "And I know you're only friends with me because there isn't anyone else stupid enough to hang around with you. But to be honest with you, I think I'd rather be on my own now." He folded his arms, waiting for me to say something. "Oh, I see," I said. "Do you see, though, Maxwell? Do you really? Because all these years you haven't seen once, have you? You only ever see yourself." I nodded at him slowly. Yes, you're right," I said. "I've been a terrible friend." Charlie shifted from foot to foot as he stared at the floor. I continued. "I've been horrible. I've laughed at you behind your back. I've let you down. I don't expect you to want to be mates with me ever again. But I just wanted to say, you're my best friend, Charlie. You're funny and brilliant and clever, and I guess I'd probably been a bit jealous of you. How you never get into trouble and you know so much stuff. And you always seem to be happy just being you, you know? You don't care what anyone thinks of you. Not in this world, anyway." Charlie looked at me, a puzzled look on his face, but he quickly looked back down. "I won't hang around with you any more, if that's what you want, okay? But if you do ever want to be mates again, then let me know." I waited for him to say something, but he didn't even look at me. I dropped my head and turned away. As I walked down the pathway, I heard the front door close behind me.